Hi.
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 Hello.
I'm curious about...
I'm curious about building open, authentic, loving relationship.
I'm curious about jealousy.
I'm curious about polyamory.
Does it just mean that you're fucking all the time?
How can I tell my parents that my partner is already married?
I'm curious about...
How do you know when you're too busy to have another relationship?
I'm curious about dominant and subordinate relationships.
I'm curious about sexual health.
How can relationships evolve with people as they grow and change?
And they are not separate because you know who you're discriminating against. You know who you are conducting racism against by what they look like. Mm-hmm. You're able to look at them and say, you are other, and I'm going to treat you in the way that we treat those who we consider to be other.
Welcome to the Curious Folks podcast for those challenging the status quo in love, sex, and relationships. My name is Effy Blue.
And I'm Jacqueline Misla. And today we're talking about how our conditioning impacts our sexual self-esteem, particularly for people of color. So in episode 96 with Dar Eisenbrook, we talked to him about human evolution, relationships, and Playboy covers. Mm-hmm. And in there, we talked about why we are attracted to who we are attracted to from an evolutionary perspective.
Exactly. Dr. Eisenberg told us that it was essentially about symmetry and proportions. Yes. It was that simple, right? He was just like, all the bells and whistles, ultimately you're coming down to proportions and symmetry. And the more symmetrical people's face, the more attractive we find them. And there's a golden ratio for the human body for men and women. And when you hit that golden ratio, you're considered beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, of course, as people, we make things even more complicated than that. Mm-hmm. We're like, how can we capitalize on that and make it actually harder? Mm-hmm. And after the episode, Effy and I talked, and we were curious about the impact of our current surroundings on who we're attracted to based on the standard of beauty. As Dr. Eisenbrook shared, nature and nurture go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, our evolutionary preferences and conditioning and prejudices and capitalism all impact how we see beauty in ourselves and in other people. Mm-hmm. And for me in particular, as a person of color, I think it's important to name when we're talking about conditioning, how this impacts people of color in a very unique way.
So why do standards of beauty impact people of color more, Jackie?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I'm like, we can have a whole episode just on like the history of racism and prejudice within the United States. That is not the work that we do.
Not here. We'll start another podcast for that particular conversation.
But as it relates to our work around relationships and knowing yourself and esteem and sexual self-esteem, there's just a million examples. I'm just thinking about shopping and how shopping for makeup, and that light colored makeup is often called nude or skin color. And that is not true if you have darker skin. Clothes often were not made for bodies of people of color, which may be bigger, have bigger hips, have bigger chests. There's just some proportional differences that may be there that now that's changing. For a long time, that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. And even, people have been fired because of the texture and style of their hair. So more than just standard of beauty impacting how you feel about yourself, it impacted your income. It impacted the way that you show up in the world. And then within that, it then internalizes and has an impact on our sexual self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I imagine just from being a woman, so there's like layers to this, right? So I find the beauty standards are one of the reasons that contribute to disembodiment, right? Let's talk about women to start with. That we are told what beautiful is, and most of us don't match that beauty standards, right? Because we're normal people, and what is presented to us as beauty standards are Eurocentric, filtered, photoshopped, a small minority of the population that feels current in that moment, right? So this was presented to us. So we look at those images and we're not that, and it causes disembodiment. We are unhappy, uncomfortable with our existing bodies. So we disassociate from them. I can imagine for people of color, it's not only about discomfort and not being satisfied. In addition to that, it is also the reason why they're oppressed, why they suffer, why they may be in danger today, right? So when your physical appearance and in your body is the cause of your oppression and the cause of your suffering and the cause of feeling unsafe in your body, I can imagine it results in like real disembodiment and disconnection from, the mind-body connection that we talk about. And once you're disconnected from your body, once you're disembodied, you have no access to your inner wisdom. It's very hard to have good boundaries in place. You get disconnected from your pleasure. I think those are the reasons I can imagine why beauty standards have an extra super duper impact on people of color.
Yeah. I love the way that you phrase that. I don't think I ever thought about it in that way, that if our bodies are the cause of our oppression within this society, then we show up as disembodied. Yeah. Yeah. I am light skinned, so white presenting. And so my experience in the world is impacted by that, and there are privileges that come with that. So I want to name that. And growing up in my teens, in my 20s, and I'm sure even now in ways that I've yet to discover, my sexual experiences, my sexual self-esteem, my way of viewing myself was completely impacted by internal racism and colorism and texturism and featurism. I was really self-conscious about the color of my areola and my labia because they were not pink. And the standard of what I saw out there in movies and such were pink, pink nipples and pink vaginas, and mine were not. And so I was really self-conscious. I missed a lot of sex in the shower opportunities because I did not want my hair to get wet. Because I meticulously straightened it and did not want the wetness to reveal my curls. Yeah. So again, while I'm white presenting, I know this then is more difficult for folks who are less racially ambiguous and yeah.
I mean, that sounds painful. I think this is one of the reasons why representation is so important, right? That's why we go back and talk about that a lot. And I think, for somebody who's getting a handle on themselves and really getting to know themselves and supposed to love themselves, I think it's hard when you don't see representation out there that is considered beautiful, and I'm sorry that was your experience. I can see how that sucks.
And what's interesting is, literally no one who has ever slept with me was like, saw me and was like, wait a minute.
Right.
Your areolas are more brown than I expected. We can't do this, right? That has never happened. So there's an irrational fear around someone is going to see me in a certain way. It's the same reason why, in sex for a long time, I was like arching my back and hiding my folds. And we've had that conversation before. But it doesn't matter whether or not my partner was a person of color. It didn't matter whether or not they ever indicated that some of those things were problems to them. It was just the way I saw myself as beautiful based on, to your point, what was illustrated around me.
It's interesting to me that it impacted you even when you are with people of color, like when you were in relationships or you're playing with people of color, that it's interesting that you were impacted even then. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. This is, and it goes back to within internalized racism, it is internalized within our communities of color. And so there are folks who make decisions about who they want to be with based on the color of their skin and the texture of their hair and, who they're going to take home and is going to get approved. And so that existed. And then in my nakedness with those folks, it's not rational. I can't even give you an answer to say this is why that makes sense to me. I've experienced it with my partners as well on their end, that we are all continuing to try to adjust to a standard that is not natural to us. And we don't talk about it. At least I didn't talk about it. I didn't name it. It was just the thing that you do. And so we were both just doing the thing that you do living in the United States. And so it certainly wasn't conscious enough at that point. I think certainly I'm in a different place now, but it was not top of mind to have even asked about it, known about it, talked about it, determined why we were even doing that. Everyone's areolas here are brown. So why am I so conscious about this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just looked at myself and thought, I don't look like what is supposed to be pretty. And even if this person is with me and they're having sex with me and they're in relationship with me and they seem to, I still know that there's somebody that they really think that's actually more pretty than me. I think that's what it came down to. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry.
I know.
That sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it wasn't until preparation for this conversation that I was able to connect those dots. Like it really wasn't until I was sitting with it and saying, okay, how has it impacted my sexual self-esteem? And then it was like example after example after example came up for myself. And, that's a conversation that we're going to dig in even more today. And we're going to talk about some heavy things. I mean, certainly capitalism, which often I think comes up in our conversations when we talk about society. And talking about racism and talking about white supremacy. And, actually, let me take a glossary moment because I want to take an opportunity to define what white supremacy means in the context of our conversation today. Because, within the US, I think that when we hear that word, we think about the KKK or Proud Boys or overt racism. And white supremacy is not just about one's individual belief that European descent or white presenting people are better than people of color. But as a society within the United States, our standards were created by white people to benefit white people. And so even though someone may not believe that they're being racist, in the way in which we live our day-to-day lives, it is impacted by that lens. Our society is designed to afford white people more privileges than they do people of color. And so that's what we mean, particularly in this context around white supremacy, that the standards around us were defined by whiteness and the rest of us had to adjust.
Yeah. I think the distinction here is like if white supremacy with capital W, capital S is the sort of the movement, right? This is the KKK, the Proud Boys, the overt racism. I think what we're talking about here is supremacy of whiteness, right? Which is that the whiteness and the characteristics of whiteness is prioritized and is considered to be the standard, right? And that is the main distinction. I think sometimes this gets lost in the language, and I think sometimes because of the potency of the idea of white supremacy with the capital W and the capital S is so severe, not many people associate with it, right? Not many people identify with it, and it can be the reason why people kind of distance themselves from ideas because they're like, well, that's not me. Right. So I think that's why it's worth us mentioning that here, because we use the term white supremacy in this conversation with Dr. Donna. It's an invitation for our listeners to remain open and to really hear what she has to say without getting defensive around the language of white supremacy.
Yes. Because for many folks who are saying, I don't consciously contribute to that. If the standard of beauty is tall, thin, and blonde, and you are tall, thin, and blonde, I don't think that you created the systems of blondness, right? I don't believe that you personally decided that your hair was better and that everyone should then dye their hair. And in the same way, I don't believe there are white folk now who are like, I think this is better and I'm going to shift it. I think that is true. That's the capital W, capital S version of white supremacy. But so just naming that to say that some of these conversations feel uncomfortable and they're important. I wish when I was in my 20s, I heard someone talking about brown labias. I wish
talk about
that was
labias,
the case.
period, to be honest.
Exactly.
Yes, the brown labias. Yes, absolutely. Representation matters. I do think that we just need to talk about labias to start with, and then make sure there is representation of all colors, all shapes, all different situations. But yes, I mean, I wish people talked about labias today.
Yes.
More.
Yes. We're going to have a campaign about the rainbow of colors of labias.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. And since we're defining things, let's have another glossary moment. I referenced colorism and texturism and featurism. And so what is that? And our guide to answer that question and to help us continue to unpack this conversation is Dr. Donna Oriowo.
I am Dr. Donna Oriowo. I'm a sex and relationship therapist in the Washington, D.C. metro area, though I find that my title is now becoming ever the more expansive. So I'm probably doing a lot more speaking, educating, workshops, et cetera, at this time. I connect how colorism and texturism in particular impact mental and sexual health. And I guess the world knows me as a therapist that is slightly on the side of could be inappropriate, but maybe slightly funny. I don't know. People tell me I'm funny, but I don't feel it.
It's the perfect mix.
Exactly. It's the right concoction. I love it. Nice. Well, thank you, Dr. Donna. We love having you here right now. Well, racism is a topic that's been widely talked about, thankfully, and we are becoming more and more aware of how it shows up, our part in it, how we can make some changes. It's an ongoing current conversation, which is so super, super important. Today, we want to drill down a little and explore colorism, texturism, and featurism and how it affects sexual self-esteem. I find that it's always good to start from the top. So can you tell us what is colorism, texturism, and featurism? And where does it come from?
They are the sort of implicit and explicit preference for Eurocentric before Afrocentric standards for skin tone that is whiter, hair textures that are straighter, and facial features that are thinner or finer, respectively. Colorism is about the favoring of whiter and lighter skin individuals over darker skin individuals. Texturism is about favoring naturally straighter hair over more kinkier or coilier hair. And featurism is favoring thinner noses, thinner lips, certain, I almost want to say delicate, but I'm saying it in quotes, sort of facial features. So ones that don't necessarily mark someone as immediately being of African descent.
So it's like racism applied to aesthetics.
It is racism.
Yeah, yes.
It is actually racism. So the way that we understand racism, I think that sometimes we take it outside of the physical. And how do you know to whom you are going to be racist against, if not by how they look?
Mm-hmm.
So sure. I think that sometimes we talk about colorism, texturism, and featurism as though they are separate entities, related, but separate. And they are not separate because you know who you're discriminating against. You know who you are conducting racism against by what they look like. You're able to look at them and say, you are other, and I'm going to treat you in the way that we treat those who we consider to be other. Yeah. So I think that, it's not just the explicit preference for, I think preference can be a very loaded word in and of itself. It's more about the systemic and systematic, cultural, pervasive ways in which we show that one is supposed to be mightier than the other.
I appreciate that distinction because that was one of the conversations that Effy and I have been having in preparation for this, is the distinction between personal preference and what we are being fed around what is beautiful and what is sexy, and how that sinks into our minds and impacts at some point our preferences, that we may be able to override that, but it's in there. It's embedded in there.
Absolutely.
It's interesting, actually. So this is exactly the conversation that we were having. And the piece that I was getting sort of stuck on is this idea that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And that if that's the case, how does this work, right? Like how are people impacted? And I think what you've just said connected a bunch of dots for me, which is that might be the case on an individual preference. But if the system is saying this is beautiful, even though your preference might be diverse and colorful and whatever, but essentially the people are still being oppressed and segregated, and it doesn't really matter what your personal preference is. So Jackie and I were having a back and forth about this, and now I realize, as with a lot of things, it's like, it's not one or the other, it's actually both. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the system prevails. So both of those things actually exist and continues to oppress, is what I'm understanding.
It's funny. I've been having more and more of these conversations. And I mean, you would expect that I would because this is my area of expertise. But I'm actually surprised by how many more of these conversations I've been having in the last just 3 days, as it were. And I like that you talked about the idea of the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think that we think that we are the ones beholding.
Mm-hmm.
We are not. I don't know that you can have any preferences that have ever been unexamined. What can you prefer without having actually examined where that came from? And a lot of us, we are moving through life having never examined any of it. I'm looking like, you say you prefer it, but do you prefer it? Or is this all you've known? Is this what you've been taught? Is this what has been consistently and constantly and ceaselessly fed to you as a preference? I think that if you spend enough time with zebras, like if you did it from the time that you were a baby, you never saw another human, you would be able to say, oh yes, that zebra is very sexy. You would be able to identify what makes a zebra so damn sexy. Maybe not in English because you would have spent all your time with zebras, but just the same, that is the pervasive nature of being around just one thing, for it to be constantly, for you to be inundated with it. It sort of reminds me of like this idea of breaking horses, right? Like you can break a horse so badly, although we think of breaking a horse in as a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. But you can break a horse to the point where you can ride it to death. Like the horse will allow you to override what its body is demanding for. Mm. And some of us think that is the right of humankind, that because we are humans, we are allowed to domesticate and break things that are around us. And a lot of us don't realize that we are also the horse. We have been hijacked by who has chosen what beauty is. And it is often the rich white elite. They have chosen what it is because they have felt a need to distinguish themselves, to distinguish their money from everybody else around them. So they have decided what is beautiful. And we think that we are exempt from the choices and that we're so above it all. Oh, wow, I'm having a Devil Wears Prada moment. Andy in that blue sweater. But you think that you are exempt because you chose that frumpy blue sweater. Yes. But you're actually picking the sweater that was chosen for you by the rich white elite.
Yes.
And that's for everyone. That's not just for people of color. Because I think that there's this idea that colorism, texturism, racism even really only impacts people of color. No, it impacts us worse. Certainly. It impacts us in a different way than it will impact white and white presenting people. I'm looking like it still impacts them. I'm looking like, come on now. The beauty industry is $1 billion industry. Why? It's made off the back of you feeling ugly. Mm-hmm. And how you can make yourself look better and how you can make yourself feel better about the fact that you weren't born with the looks that you should have been born with. It's, oh, well, you're not blonde and you don't have blue eyes, but contacts can do the eyes. A bottle of dye can do the hair. And you too can have hair that does all that extra movie stuff. And, you know, like those herbal essences commercials of the, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, right? So you too can actually be sexy and desirable if you buy this bottle of shampoo. Your happiness is one hair wash away. Your happiness is in a bottle of nail polish.
And that is what sexy is.
Exactly. It is dangerously pervasive because a lot of us are also overriding what our own bodies want and need because we're telling ourselves that we're not thin enough, that we don't have the type of body parts or enough of the type of body parts that other people would find attractive. This is the pervasiveness of white supremacist patriarchal capitalism. It is your beauty standard. It told you, and then we follow.
It makes me think of Ibram X. Kendi, who talks about that when you're standing in the rain so long, you don't realize that you're wet. And I think that that's what you're talking about, is that racism is poured on us in such a way that we don't even realize that we are wet. We don't realize the impact of that. We don't realize how we're ingesting that and projecting that.
It is mundane. Mm-hmm. White supremacy is mundane. It's everyday. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. And we trick ourselves into believing that some people are simply deserving and other people are not. we have not seen how they are choosing who is considered deserving and who is not. Because colorism, texturism, featurism impacts at every level of society. I'm looking like, why do Black women die earlier? Well, Black people as a whole die earlier because racial stress is stress. But it's worse the darker you are. No one checks those statistics, right? We just lump everything together to say that the Black experience is this. But the darker you are, the more obviously Black you are in an anti-Black society, the worse off all of your outcomes are. Not making as much money, likely to die earlier for those who are able to give birth or wanting to give birth, horrible outcomes for pregnant folk. This is pervasive. It is everywhere. It is ceaseless. And it is normalized. Yeah. And that for me is the scariest part, how normal it all seems.
Can you talk about how that impacts our mental health, how that impacts our sexual self-esteem? I know that you're talking about it certainly as it relates to stress and that impacts our mental health. And then within communities, not dealing with our mental health was a part. So it was actively impacting us and we couldn't do anything about it in a way that felt safe. Can you translate that to how that shows up in our sexual spaces?
I think of it firstly as impacting your general sense of self, how you identify yourself, how you see yourself, which means that it greatly impacts your self-esteem, your self-concept. All of these things are impacted. Self-esteem is a subset of self-concept. So self-concept is the concept of your entire being, everything that you know about yourself. Self-esteem is how you feel about it. It impacts both. It impacts how you see yourself and how you feel about what you see, which can then in turn increase your anxiety, increase your depression. This is a form of trauma. People don't think of colorism as being something that would offer any level of trauma, but it is a form of trauma with what very many people have grown up with. So you are already traumatized, which also opens you up to being more sensitive to anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues and concerns, right? And then how this translates into your sexuality is in what partners you decide you're going to entertain. Sometimes we entertain people who are not to put us in hierarchies, but to people who are beneath us, or rather people who are not a good fit for us, who are not in alignment with us, who don't feel right. But because we've been told we ain't shit, we're like, oh, well, I got to take what I can get. And this is what I can get. It doesn't matter that it's emotionally, physically, or mentally abusive. I have to take what I can get because I don't know that I can do any better, right? What partners you believe that you are worthy of. If you do not feel like you are deserving of or worthy of the partner that you have, you can also, even if they are the bee's knees, this partner is everything. You know, they are the most kind, the most loving. If you don't believe that you're deserving of them, how do you sabotage your relationship with that person? How about what you will and won't tolerate sexually, right? Because to have boundaries, to express them, to hold them, and to hold people accountable to them because you communicated them, you have to have some certain modicum of, self-concept and self-esteem. How are you going to tell somebody, actually, you can't stick it in my butt, right? Or actually, I don't prefer the purple toy. I prefer the green toy. How do you talk about your sexual preferences, needs, and boundaries if you are not feeling safe enough to do so or feeling like you are allowed to have a choice at all, right? It also can come through with fewer orgasms by way of spectatoring because you are so busy worried about what you look like. And if you are appealing to whoever your sexual partner or partners are, that you are not in your body enjoying the sensations and, oh, you tickled me there and that feels nice. Or, oh my gosh, that kiss was great. You're not there. You're like, oh, I got to arch my back. Oh, I should look off to the side because that would be sexy. I'm going to lift my arm and I'm going to do these poses sexually so that I can look like I am enjoying it, but you're not actually because you're not even in your body, which brings us to another thing. A lot of people are not in their bodies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We are disembodied because we don't know how to, number one, a lot of us don't know how to accept a compliment. Someone tells you you're so beautiful. And instead of saying thank you, maybe, or I know, if that's where you're wanting to go, we want to eagerly return the compliment to get it off of ourselves. Or we say, oh, this old thing that I'm wearing, or, I got it from Ross. So we do anything to deflect from receiving the thing that someone is trying to give us. We are disembodied. So we don't know how to accept compliments. We also don't know how to accept pleasure. So we are off thinking about the next thing or whatever. Because we're not fully in our bodies, we can't fully experience the pleasure. Mm-hmm. We can't fully experience our partners because we're busy also trying not to fully experience ourselves. Mm-hmm. There's no aspect of partner picking or anything that is not impacted.
As you're talking, what's coming up for me are all the instances where this has had a direct impact on my partnerships and on my sexual experiences.
People don't even realize just how often they already do that type of stuff. I'm thinking about how many times do people have sex in the dark just because they're like, I don't want this other person to see me, right? Folk with Black and brown bodies are worried about the areas of their bodies that are extra dark, right? Like, oh, well, they're going to think that I'm dirty because my anus or my butt crack is darker than this other. Oh, I have this skin discoloration in this space. I don't know if I want them to see that. I'm worried about my smell. I'm worried about my taste. I'm worried about what I look like. And I don't know that what I look like is attractive. Oh, what about my pubic hair? Oh, should I get rid of it? Should I keep it? Oh, are they going to think? We are running through a million freaking questions. It's so very normalized that we're just like, okay, I just got to fix this I can fix it with the bottle of this or with this type of razor or whatever. And we're constantly going in this space. I'm like, are you living in your body if all you're trying to do is control it? Are you a horse that you're trying to break?
These are very profound. And I think the more we think about it, the more we realize how much it's affecting our day-to-day life. I'm curious to how colorism, texturism, and Featurism impact relationships between people of color specifically.
I feel like that is a both beautiful, loaded, and difficult question. Because the presence of white supremacy doesn't leave, right? So it can show up in preferences for partners who look a certain way, right? Lighter skinned partners with a certain hair texture, a certain look, that this is the thing that is the most attractive, right? It comes up in the past, it was brown paper bag tests and comb tests. The brown paper bag test being that you were denied entry from churches, colleges, fraternities, sororities based off your skin tone. So it's like, oh, if you're lighter than the brown paper bag, entry granted. Darker, entry denied. Comb test is, can I comb from the root to the tip without getting stuck? If I can, then you are allowed entry. If I cannot, you are denied entry. And from various institutions, from various spots, from jobs, from, like, oh, you can't bring that person home to your mama, that sort of thing. Like, you can't do those things. And these things were in the past, yes, but the vestiges of them still remain. Mm-hmm. So it also impacts, I think, feelings of trust and mistrust. We don't think of it that way, but I do. Particularly when people of color are gathered together, specifically, I'm saying people of color because I want to make sure that it feels all encompassing. It's everybody who ain't white, right? Or ain't white identified. When all of these people come together, we still place ourselves on the hierarchy of who's closest to whiteness. We still pick people based off the hierarchy of who's closest to it, who is meeting the look, who's meeting the talk, who's going to have the most success in what is essentially a white supremacist world. So we are still sort of jockeying for position, as it were, while ultimately POC overall still are very anti-Black. So a white person doesn't physically have to be present for white supremacy to continue its presence. We just continue to use it. And it makes sense because it's, like I said, pervasive. It's from womb to tomb. I don't know that there's a moment where it is not something that is being presented that you would be free of it. It is consistently in the room. You have to consciously make decisions to separate away from it. So when I say the piece around mistrust, I don't know if I can trust my Black self, right? Or my dark-skinned Black self with people who don't look like me, or even with people who do look like me. I don't know who is subscribed to white supremacy, and I don't know how subscribed they are. I don't know if they say that there's the saying, all skin folk and kinfolk. Just because someone looks like you doesn't mean that they are wanting to be in family or in community with you. So how do we navigate this space together? So there is a sense of mistrust and trying to find who your people are and hoping to find community and be able to maintain it.
I'm wondering, to this point of we are all already wet, how do we, knowing this, both as folks who are white presenting and for folks who are people of color, how do we interrupt the pattern? What do we do now with this knowledge?
What we do now is, number one, admit that it's there. I think that too many of us are not willing to admit that it's there. And too many of us are also in the space of, well, I'm the good version of whatever, right? Like, oh, I'm this. I don't actually subscribe to that. People of color as a whole don't want to realize that we are also, we are an oppressed oppressor, that we also we allow repetition for the same shit, right? White women don't want to recognize that they are also an oppressed oppressor, and some would argue the most dangerous oppressor, but they're often some of the first to separate themselves out to say that, but I'm not racist. And I'm just like, are you white? Then you're racist. Welcome. Welcome to the party already in progress. You are racist. And the rest of us are internally oppressed and also likely have some racism. Right. So I'm like, just come to the party. We're all here. We're all here already. You missed the hors d'oeuvres, but the main course is on the way. Please join us. Right. And just being able to note what the problem is, to see it and to be able to discuss it without people saying that you're being divisive or that you're part of the problem because you're talking about what the problem is and you're noting the ways in which it shows up. If we don't talk about the problem, we never get to the part where how it shows up, nor do we ever get to the part where we have solutions. So first, we need to actually be willing to have these conversations. For people who are on the privileged end of things, if you're unwilling to put your resources, that's your time, your effort, your energy, and your money toward your learning, if you're not willing to put your resources toward it, stop lying and saying that you are. How we do the work is we first recognize that there's work to be done. So work to be done as a whole, but work to be done on the personal, and that we do not shirk our individual responsibility to build community of people who are also doing the work.
Are there any particular recommendations that you have for folks around where to spend their time and money and resources?
There are several Instagram pages that I certainly recommend. Colorism Healing is one. Go support, follow, like, share, send them money because the work is hard. Mm-hmm. There is The Darkest Hue. Follow The Darkest Hue. They have lots of followers, but they are, when I say that it is prime A content and breaking it down and helping people to learn, that is another place to follow, learn, send them money. There are books on colorism, on texturism, on hair history. So Hair Story is one of those books by Ayana Bird and Lori Tharps. Usually I look at my bookshelf at this moment, but my bookshelf is not around. So that's one book to go to, learn, read about hair history. For those who are looking to start doing some of that internal work, I recommend my book, Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease, A Self-Love Journey Through Hair and Skin. It is purchasable through Amazon, of course, but it is also purchasable through my own website. So you can go to cocoabutterandhairgrease.com and it will direct you. One of the other things that you can do that is a little bit more on the free side is look at who you follow on social media. Look at who you follow.
For sure.
Do you follow anyone with diverse thought? Or are you following just, the same old, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for people of color in particular, particularly the darkest among us, when you are constantly seeing pictures, videos, et cetera, of just light and white skinned people, it starts making it feel like they are the norm and you are not.
Mm-hmm.
Follow something else. Follow someone else. Broaden the horizons of who you're following so that you can also feel like you are seen and represented.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something free that you can do. Curate your social media content.
Mm-hmm. That's something that we feel very passionate about on Curious Fox. We actually invite people to change the noise. The noise being this sort of prevailing thing that we have around us, that is our feeds, that is our close small communities, that is, sort of the myopic way of looking at our immediate environment, and just taking that all the things that are fed to us, including the echo chambers that we find ourselves in, and actively and with curiosity tune into the things that you're not hearing. Change that noise for you, curate that noise for you, make some decisions to who you want to follow, who you want to listen to, who you want to see. I think that's really important, and I love that you're emphasizing that.
I mean, other than that, a movie that you can watch, it's a documentary, Dark Girls. It will teach you plenty. If you want something with a little bit more Zaza Zoom, I guess you can go with Spike Lee School Days.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Black Like Us episode for Blackish that I definitely recommend looking into. There's a book, Hair Matters by Ingrid Banks. Tender-Headed by Pamela Johnson and Juliet Harris. It's like a compilation of studies and stories and things of that nature. My website, Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease, we accept blogs all the time from people who are talking about their experiences. We should be open to hearing and listening from those folk. I also suggest Dr. Yaba Blay. They are on Instagram at Dr. Yaba Blay. So going to their Instagram, definitely partaking, putting money in the collection plate, because knowledge should not be free. Even if it is on Instagram, pay for what you can pay for. They also have a book called One Drop. I recommend getting it. I feel like I gave, a few resources.
I know that was a lot. that was appreciation. I know we're going to listen back and write all these down. So appreciation for you for helping us to get to know ourselves better. And in our last few minutes with you, want to get to know you a little better. And so we have 4 questions that we would like to ask so that we can understand more about Dr. Donna. The first of which is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self about love, sex, or relationships?
Focus on you. Do you want me to explain it?
No, that's great. No, perfect.
Great piece of advice. I'll take that right now, actually. What is one romantic or sexual adventure on your bucket list?
Ooh, I would like airplane sex, but legal. As legal as I can get it.
I like it. First class in the VIP section? Are we talking bathroom stall? There's a lot of different options.
Whichever way won't get me in trouble with the FCC.
Feels good.
I like it. How do you challenge the status quo?
By living my true and authentic out loud self.
Absolutely. What are you curious about lately?
What my chosen life will look like 20 to 30 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and energy and all the things. I think there are a few episodes that we do where immediately afterwards, I just need like 10, 15 minutes to sit in it, to let it wash over me, to take some notes. And this is one of those places where immediately after I'm like, all right, I just need to process. So thank you. And thank you again for helping me even connect some dots in my own experience that I had not thought about before. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Donna.
And thank you for having me.
Wow, that is a lot. Yeah. That is a lot to think about. It goes deep.
Yeah.
It goes dark.
Yes. Yes. No pun intended.
No pun intended, right?
Yes.
It cuts deep because, I think it affects everyone. And of course, just like anything else, things that affect everyone affect people of color more.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. There's so much in there. But one of my takeaways that is reaffirmed, over and over again, I want to sing that Avenue Q song. Everyone's a little bit racist, right?
Yeah.
We're all a little bit racist, and we need to think about that, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to change our noise, and think about what are the messages that we're taking in and internalizing, and are letting it affect our decisions, and letting it condition us into making decisions that don't always necessarily align with what's happening, what's right for us, right in the form of like, what is our inner intelligence telling us? Like, what is our true, authentic preferences, and what we think is beautiful. And, like, instead of following our curiosity, that we follow our conditioning.
Yes. Yeah. She gave, appreciate Dr. Donna gave us a lot of resources, things to read, things to watch, things to listen to. And I do think that's important in the spirit of also just reaffirming and kind of bringing things into one's consciousness. For me, my takeaways are, number one, if you are a person of color, think about how racism, colorism, texturism, Featurism, or simply just societal beauty standards, right? So let's say you don't fall within that category. Just sit and think about, how does this actually impact your self-concept, your self-esteem, your sexual self-esteem? Think about that, because I'm sure that there is something that you are doing and have been doing maybe unconsciously that is the impact of that. Like me and my, missing out on all of those shower sex moments because of I didn't want my hair to get curly. I'm sure there are moments like that. And if you're partnered with somebody who is a person of color, share this episode with them and then have the conversation and ask them. Ask them how they're being impacted. Yeah. Because again, they may know and may not be telling you, they may not know, and it'll open up something for you both and create more connection and intimacy. But yeah, talk about it.
I think there's more profound shifts if you don't know, right? If you are not aware, it's impacting you, you're not aware, and then suddenly it's brought to your consciousness with conversations like this, and you're like, damn, like that's the reason why I don't like shower sex. Like that's the reason why I don't like, people going down on me with the lights on. Like that's the reason why. So I think it's even more profound when people are stuck in a certain mode and don't know why. And this could be the answer why.
Yeah. Have the conversation, and break the patterns in that way too. I think about that with my daughter and what I'm role modeling to her in terms of my relationship with my body and sexuality, and making sure that she sees all of the colors of the labia rainbow and all of the areolas, and knowing that she, no matter what she looks like, that it's perfect. And so I've been thinking about that, like, how am I contributing to this now that I'm conscious of it in a way that is positive? How have I been contributing it to in a way that is negative? How have I been reinforcing some of these isms, and what do I need to do to stop? So that's on my mind, is just really being thoughtful about the impact on myself and how I am impacting those around me.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
We did an episode 30 with Angie Gunn around the non-monogamous paradigm shift and challenging the frameworks that limit and oppress. And within there, have a deep dive around how the societal norms and power and hierarchy impact our non-monogamous relationships. And so I think it's just worth continuing to dig in and seeing where there are power dynamics at play, seeing where there is bias at play, and then making decisions about it. Just being mindful of it and doing something differently.
Absolutely. I mean, recently I've been binging on Eckhart Tolle just because I do that kind of stuff. And the thing that is keep coming up that, he goes on about, which is to me, it's profound. It's one of those things, like, I know it's not new, but it is hitting me in a way that it feels profound. And this idea of your conditioning versus your consciousness, which is what I just mentioned. And I think just realize being mindful is the antidote to that, right? Being mindful is connecting to the consciousness versus the conditioning, right? The conditioning is the unconscious mind, if you will. It's just the thing that you do because you internalize something, or you're used to something, or you've seen it from somebody else and you accepted it as the norm. And then just being mindful is like, is that my truth? Or like, can I dig deeper? Can I connect with my own choices, my own desires, my own sense of beauty, my own perception of the world that feels authentic and mine, and then approach things from that place. And this is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's a challenge for all of us. Whether or not we do anything differently, I think the first call to action is just that. Determine actually if this is a part of our conditioning versus our consciousness. Yeah, I love that. I love that. To find out more about Dr. Donna Oriowo, you can visit her website at donnaoriowo.com and on Facebook and Instagram at AnnodRight, AnnodRight. And while you're online, check us out. Go to our Instagram and Facebook and have conversations about this podcast. If you go on our Instagram, you're going to get a sneak peek of what's happening next week, and you'll get to add your questions to the list so that we can ask our guests. If you go onto Facebook, you can have a conversation around how this resonated with you, if there are other questions that you have, and talk with us and other listeners. And if you want behind the scenes, if you want extra clips, if you want access to some of the workshops that we've done in the past, then you got to go onto Patreon. The key that unlocks all of this is finding us at We Are Curious Foxes. You can find us there on our website as well. There are so many ways in which you can connect with us on social media. One of the ways that we love to connect is old school, via phone, via email. You can call us at 201-870-0063 to leave us a message or a story or a question, or you can email us at listening@wearecuriousfoxes.com.
This episode is produced and edited by Nina Pollock, whose beautiful spirit transcends all beauty standards. Our intro music is composed by Dev Saha. We are so grateful for their work, and we're grateful to you for listening. As always, stay curious, friends. Outro. Okay, so
it's like we're like tuning, you know, like an orchestra in the beginning when you're waiting. It's like yeah, that's what we're doing.
Totally. And then they're like ching ching. Yes. Okay. So let's get into the vibe of an interview. Coming out the other side.
Racism. White supremacy, capitalism, they're all bad. All right, go.
They made us feel bad. Yeah. Okay. Curious Fox Podcast is not and will never be the final word on any topic. We solely aim to encourage curiosity and provide a space for exploration through connection and story. We encourage you to listen with an open and curious mind, and we'll look forward to your feedback. Stay curious, friends.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.